This is lesson 1-6 of Algebra 2. Our topic is absolute value equations and inequalities. Our objective is to write and solve equations and inequalities involving absolute value. So why do we use absolute value? It helps us to talk about distances, how far things are away, and the distance things are from 0. The absolute value of a real number written as absolute of those double bars x is its distance from 0 on the number line. So basically, if we're thinking of these numbers in symbol boxes, we represent that with a number in the middle. So if we're saying the absolute value of 5, it's those 2 bars, 5, well, that's going to be 5. And the absolute value of -5 is also going to be 5. Remember, absolute value is always positive. We don't talk about going, when we talk about distance, we always talk with positive numbers. So, absolute value equations are equations that have a variable inside of the absolute value symbol. You have to think about what numbers would make the equations below true. So obviously x is 5. The one that you might forget about is that x could also be -5 because both of those, the absolute value of them are 5 like we talked about above. And so absolute value equations actually typically have two solutions. Okay, so here we're going to solve an absolute value equation. So the first step when we solve an absolute value equation is to rewrite the equations. And when I say equations, yes, I mean equations plural. We have the positive absolute value of x minus 8, so that's going to be x minus 8 equals 6. But what we have inside could also be a -6 because we're going to take the absolute value of it and it becomes a positive. So we also have x minus 8 can equal -6. So we have both of those options. Step 2 is then to solve each equation. So we're going to start with solving each equation. We add 8, we add 8, we get x equals 14, we add 8, we add 8, and we get x equals 2. Our third step is to graph each solution. So when we graph that, we create a number line. You can really just graph those 2 points. Here's 2, and here's 14. They are just points. And then step 4, oh, there's your number line, is to check your solutions. We're going to go back to the original absolute value equation, absolute value of x minus 8 equals 6, and we're going to make sure that both of those work. 2 minus 8, absolute value of that is that's -6, which gives you 6. And then we go 14 minus 8, which is 6. Absolute value of that is 6. Ching, it worked. All right, so here are 2 problems I want you to do, or here's 3 problems, maybe 5 problems I want you to do on your own. Pause the video now and do these top 2. Absolute value x minus 9 equals -7 and the absolute value of 2x plus 5 equals 9, and then check your answers. If that first problem stumped you, good. It should have. If it didn't, then you need to pause and look at that equation that you started with that said equals -7. Absolute value, it always comes out to be positive because what we're truly talking about is distance. So if you have an absolute value equal to a negative number, you actually can't do anything. That is not possible. There's no way you can get the absolute value of x minus 9 to be -7. So then you should have gone to the next one. You got x equals 2 and x equals -7. Make sure you went through and checked your answers and then graphed it. Here are some more problems that you have on your paper. Here's 2 more. Pause the video and try these 2. On this first one, you needed to first isolate the absolute value just like you would with a parenthesis. So you got rid of that -1, and then next we got rid of that 3, and then you're left with this absolute value of x plus 2 equals 3, which we then created into 2 separate equations. Make sure you went back and checked them. I happened to, and they both worked. You graph your answers, that's what you got. This next one, you have an x on both sides, one inside the absolute values and one outside. So your first way you set it up, you're going to set up just like it looks like in the given part without the absolute value signs. And then the second setup, you're going to take the opposite of the right side outside that parentheses. So it's the opposite of 10 minus x. You have that negative out in front, which we then distribute through down there, and we solve for x. If you check your solutions, they do work. When you have something like 14/3, if you want to use your calculator to do that for you, you can. The key is that when you do that, when you type it in, you're going to go 2 times parentheses 14 divided by 3, close the parentheses, minus 4. That's what you want to type in, and then obviously take the absolute value of it, and then when you type in that other side, you're going to go 10 minus 14 division bar 3, and you want to make sure that those end up being the same. So that's your basic absolute value equations. So the one thing about absolute value equations is that sometimes they actually have no solutions, like we talked about earlier. That happens when you have something like the absolute value of 3x plus 2 equals negative 5. We talked about this earlier. You can't have it equal to a negative number, so this one actually has no solutions. Sometimes they also have extraneous solutions, so they have extra answers that actually don't work in the original problem. That's why you have to always go plug them back and check to make sure that they work. So here we've got two problems that we need to solve and decide if our answers work and if our equations actually have solutions. So I want you to pause the videos and then try these two, and then let's talk about the answers that we get. So in this first one, you can see my solutions. You can see my solutions, and let's double check and we'll plug them in. So we have the absolute value of 3 times a negative 3 plus 2, close the absolute value, is going to equal whatever 4 times negative 3 plus 5 is. The quick check that I would actually do to start off with is actually check to make sure that that right side ends up positive. You have 4 times negative 3 is negative 12 plus 5. Because you end up with a negative 7 on that right side and you know that the absolute value can never equal a negative number, I actually wouldn't waste the rest of my time solving the left side of the equation. I know right off the bat that x equals negative 3 is an extraneous solution, so that's not possible. So now I'm going to go over and check the other one, x equals negative 1. Well, I'm going to first check it on that right side, 4 times negative 1 plus 5. That gives me negative 4 plus 5. That gives me a 1. Now I'm going to double check that in the parentheses that actually gives us me that 1. I go plug it in. Yeah, that's actually going to give me 1. 1 equals 1, that's true. So x equals negative 1 is a solution. And we're going to do the same thing down here. We're going to take these values, negative 8 and negative 1, and plug them in. Like I said, start with that right side. It's faster to catch it there usually. We end up with negative 56 plus 14. That gives us a negative 42. Can't have a negative, so we know right off the bat x doesn't equal negative 8. And I don't even have to worry about that absolute values. And now I'm going to plug in the negative 1. Notice that each time I am plugging into the very original absolute value equation. I'm going to go 7 times negative 1 plus 14. That's negative 7 plus 14. That side works. Now I go check the other side. That side is also going to end up working. Awesome. X does equal negative 1 in this case. So that was solving absolute value equations. That's the end of the Algebra 2 Lesson 1-6A video.